Hey, this is Eric from Cafe Watercolor. Thank you for joining me. Today we're going to look at my recent painting, Rainy Day in Vancouver. So I can't believe it's March already. Hope you're having a good year so far. Mine was definitely very busy and productive. I have quite a bit of things I want to do this year, including the online course. So I'm still coming up with the lesson plan right now, but it's going to be a very comprehensive course. We will be going over some basic watercolor techniques such as washes, color, and edges. There will also be lessons for more advanced stuff such as visual language, composition, and design, and a series of core fundamental stuff like drawing, perspective, and lighting, and form, and things like that. And those are probably some of the most important things, the core fundamentals. I believe that's something many students are lacking. And that's also something most watercolor workshop won't be covering, right? Because it's usually the workshop are a few days, they don't have time for that, and then it's pretty boring to go over those. People rather just jump into painting as soon as they can. But it's the most important thing. You can be doing watercolor painting for years, but without a solid fundamental knowledge and skill, your painting improvement will be very slow and limited because it's not based on a full understanding of basic drawing. So like this painting that I'm about to do, I spent quite a bit of time doing a drawing. While I'm not doing a accurate mechanical drawing, it has to be quite solid and give me a good grasp of the form and composition, size, and placement. So anyways, I'll be keeping you guys updated with more detail about the course. You can also sign up my newsletter to receive updates from me. The link to the sign up page is down below and at the end of the video. So going back to this painting, I apologize for a bit more sped up than the videos before, but this is a very complicated scenery and there are quite a bit more stuff to draw. But you can notice that I'm trying to be loose in my drawing in terms of shape. I want to leave that for the painting. However, the perspective, scale, and the position of things has to be done correctly at this stage. And drawing is a good time, or should I say the only time that you can figure those things out. If you try to figure those things out after you start painting, you're setting yourself up for more stress and risk when you're actually painting. There's a saying, and I don't know where it's originated from, but it says if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Now, while that sounds a little bit harsh, that's definitely the reality for me at least, and that's what the drawing is for, is to plan for your painting. Now we start the first wash, which is just the sky and the ground. We want a clean wash, so make sure you have a good amount of water in your mixture. And I have my paper tilted up about 40 and 45 degrees, so as I do my washes, it will gather into a bead. The bead will help you to do a clean wash and is also an indicator. So if the bead is still there, you can continue the wash down. If it's dry, the wash is finished, whether you like it or not. So that's one of the things about watercolor. You have to work with it instead of try to control it. So in terms of the color, the first wash is from cool to warm. The sky is a bit cooler, and as it approaches the ground, which is the horizon where the buildings, people, and the cars, it gets warmer. As the wash getting close to the cars, I started to be a little bit more careful and leave out some highlights on top of the cars. So I sort of skip around and create those random highlights in the background to create some more depths and some suggestive details. Now we stop at the horizon and continue on with a lighter wash, almost clean water, so it has a very soft edge between the sky and the horizon. And from light to dark again, so we started to transition the wash from lighter value to darker value to below as the ground getting closer to us. Now I take a smaller brush with clean water and squeeze out some of the extra water and do the directional lines. You have to do that while the wash is still really wet. If it dries, it won't do anything. And if it kind of semi-dry and you do that, it will start to create really some bad cauliflower edges. For the second wash, I re-wet the background with clean water. So anything I paint inside that wet area will be soft shape, which is something that you want for things in the far distance in this sort of misty, raining days. So here's a trick. I only wet the top part, so the top will be soft, and when the wash hits the dry area of the paper, I can start to skip around and have some sharp, empty spaces. So I have a soft edge on the top and sharper edge as it approaches to the ground. So these are suggestive details. They can be distant rooftop, traffic lights, cars, whatever. Like, not really important. The point is to create visual interest in the distance without being too literal. And that's what makes it interesting, and that's what makes it fun, is that when people look at the painting, they will make things out of those simple random shapes. Now the background layer is dry, I start to paint the building, starting from the pointy rooftop here. There are quite a bit of detail in the reference photo which I can't find the image, so I apologize. But there are more detail than what I'm painting right here. But in a painting you need to pick and choose where you want to invest your detail in. If you have too much detail in the background everywhere, you start to lose the depth of the painting. Basically, it's one big shape with some color variations. Here I splatter some water on it to give it a little bit texture. This is something I do quite often to break up the shape so it doesn't look so stiff. And it makes it more interesting to look at too. Now I move on to the right side. This building is a little bit closer to us, so it's darker. I also pay a little bit more attention on the shape and give it a slight more detail. Not too much though, just a little bit. And I spray a little bit of water using my spray bottle. That will keep the wash alive for a little bit longer so I can paint a little bit more. Here I paint around the highlight of the canopies on the buildings. And just by doing that you can start to see the form pops. And a lot of time watercolor is not about what you paint, it's actually about what you don't paint. It's fall when I took the photo, so the tree is mostly red and orange. So here I add some red and orange color while it's still wet, so the color kind of melts in. Splatter some water again to give some textures. It's helpful to do that when you have a dark shape like this. Some texture will help it not look so heavy. Now I start to paint the first car. A clean wash for the windshield, leave some highlight for the trunk hood, and the license plate. Darker and heavier at the bottom of the car and the wheels. Try to keep it one single shape. It'll read better, especially in a rainy scenery like this. And before the shape is dry, I added some red gouache for the tail light. It will spread out like this, which is great to give it this glow in the mist kind of feels. Right when you're in the foggy day, in a rainy day, the lights sort of had this glow to them because it lit up the atmosphere, it lit up the fogs around them. So you have this sort of halo feels to the light, and this is the thing that we want. And add some orange gouache on top to give it a bit of hot spot. And those gouache are very dry, they're not really wet. If you add too much water on them, they will just kind of wash away real quickly. And adding a cast shadow of the car so that it anchors to the ground. I then soften the edge of the shadow with some clean water because I want to paint the wet reflection later, and I don't want a hard edge on it. So I just fast forward the part that I do other cars. It's pretty much the same process, just that the distant cars is a little bit looser with more spontaneous mark. But they're pretty much the same. The windshield for the cars on the right are darker because of the reflections of the buildings, just to give it a little bit more variations. And this car on the right, I left the side of that car light, so the form is turning because of the lighting. So it's all visual language. Now the left cars. Windshield first, then drop in some dark while it's wet to create a soft reflection on the windshield. Adding some whitewash for the headlight. So same thing as the tail light, but it's facing us, so I use white because it's headlight. Now I started to paint the figures. I like to paint their face first with a pretty warm color. Then I start to paint their bodies. Keep the brush stroke lively and loose so the figure feel like they're moving. Remember, try to save some highlight for the top of the head and the shoulders. And now here's the fun part. I'm going to do the reflections. So I first wet the area where I want the reflections to be with clean water. Make sure you have plenty of water on these areas. And then I drop in some very heavy dark paint. And you can just look at it as a paint itself. And that's beautiful. That's what watercolor is about. And because I dropped the paint in the wet area and my paper is tilted, so it will just kind of flow and create a nice soft shape. So with clean brush and squeeze some water off the brush and reinforce the directional line, and this will add some interesting break to the reflections. I added some blue here because the car is blue, so the reflection has a little bit of blue tint to it. There are some breaks in the reflection because no road is perfectly flat and evenly wet. There's some drier areas, especially when there are tire marks. So you see some place has reflection, some place don't. And those directional lines will give the break that it needs. Now the painting is coming together. I'm starting to add the street light, some cables to connect the both sides together. The lamppost gets shorter as it goes into the distance because of the perspective. Now the reflections are dry, I add some gouache for the reflection of the light, of the tail light and the headlight from the car. Here I try to do a quick Canadian flag. Keep it very loose because you want the flag to feel like it's flapping. Some happy little birds. These will pop off the page because they are against the white empty space. Adding back some highlights on the figures with white gouache here and there. And here's the finished painting. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and comment. If you are new here, you can subscribe to my channel. And also visit my website at cafewatercolor.com. Sign up and get my Fast Track Watercolor PDF guide. And if you like my painting, please also check out my store. I will see you next time.